Welcome back to the Gill Athletics Connections podcast. I've got someone who everybody's been wanting to talk to and talk about, and everybody has been talking about. And we're going to clear some air and figure some things out today. And I'm really excited because I'm not a distance guy, but I've got one of the premier distance guys with me today. Help me welcome from the University of Tennessee, I'm going to get it all jumbled up here, Sean, the director of cross country, head coach of distance. I'm just going to call him the distance guru. The volunteer distance guru. That'll confuse everybody by calling him that. Help me welcome the wise, the wonderful Mr. Sean Carlson. Sean, how are you, sir?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Hey, absolutely, man. We've been talking about this for a while now, ever since the new. By the way, congratulations, the new job title here at down in Knoxville. I'm excited because first of all, I'm excited for anybody who's had success and done some amazing things in this profession. But I'm also excited that you guys are maybe doing some things differently there at the University of Tennessee, and you're also with one of my very good friends, Dwayne Ross, is I hold him very dearly and esteemed in my life, to be real frank with you. And he's a podcast alum. So now you guys have something in common.
Awesome.
So Sean, we're going to start with you. At some point, I'm assuming you were an athlete. I'm assuming you were a distance runner. That's probably a safe assumption. But at some point, coaching switched from something that was done to you. A coach would write your workouts, tell you what your long runs are going to be, etc. And at some point, it had to flip in your head that, oh, wait a minute, this is actually something that I can do, that I can become a coach one day. Where does coaching begin for you?
Yeah, so I ran at North Central College in Naperville, Illinois.
Is that right?
Yep. Alcarius, the greatest to ever do it. I was fortunate to kind of learn from him a lot of philosophies on, life, training, how to treat people, all those things. And coaching had always been something in the back of my mind. And as an athlete, you think it's, just show up to practice, obviously. And then you realize it's a lot more. But yeah, right after college, I went and worked for a very short bit. I decided I just didn't want to do the 9-to-5 cookie cutter life, and I ended up and decided to get my master's at North Central while coaching at St. Charles North High School. So I coached distance runners over at St. Charles North, had a lot of fun with it. And then figured, well, I'd like to do this at the college level. Kind of had Al as a mentor, obviously, and his suggestion was just doing it at the biggest and best level that you can first as a volunteer, and just seeing where it goes. So Joe Piani, fortunately, took me under his wing as a volunteer at the University of Notre Dame, and probably for my first 3 months, I was just like, I'd show up at, I think, like, he would get in at like 8 o'clock in the morning, Joe. And so I'd try and get in at like 7:30. And then we had an associate head coach, Alan Turner at the time. Alan would get in a little bit later in the day, but stay till like 11 p.m. And so I just worked their hours. So 7:30 till 11, and, did whatever they needed me to do. And 3 months into that, one of the assistants at Notre Dame had left, and they kind of said, well, you're sitting there, you seem to be in the office all the time, we're not going to hire you at the end of this year, but we'll give you this year, kind of. And so I just worked like crazy because I thought I was going to get fired at the end of the year. No benefits, and I think it was like $12,000 or something like that. So that was my first year of collegiate coaching, and then fortunately they kept me on.
Yeah, right. Pause there, because what I want to go back to real quick is you went into college to study something. You thought you were going to be something, a doctor, a lawyer, a business owner, and maybe you did some of that. You mentioned you had kind of a private sector job. What were you actually thinking you were going to do?
Yeah, I majored in business and finance. I wanted to own my own business. That was kind of my idea. And I want to make enough money to do that and then retire early and then coach. That was kind of my plan. I said, well, I don't want to be, climbing the rung when I'm 45 or 55 years old. So I just decided to kind of send it and do what I love now. But yeah, all of college I worked in grocery stores. Right after college, I had a job in management at a grocery store. That still my first job, I think. Well, now that I've got a new job, but it paid more than I ever made at the University of Notre Dame in 11
Oh,
years. So
you know,
I gave up a lot.
I love to myth bust, so we're going to explore that as well because we think, first of all, Division One, just in general, Power Five, secondary, and then Notre Dame. We think if you've made it there, you're raking in the big bucks. I love. We're gonna talk about that a little bit more. Before we get there, though, you mentioned something that's really special, and that's running for North Central. The coaching tree. Like I bet Al Carius laughed when you came in as a freshman. You're like, yeah, I'm going to be a business guy. I want to own my own business. And he's like, whatever, man, you're going to be a coach. Do you know where you're at? You're at North Central. This is what we do. We produce coaches, man. As you look back now, because now you have something that you didn't have then. You have perspective, right? We can look at the experiences that you had. What was it like? I mean, North Central produces not only, first of all, amazing teams and runners and individuals, et cetera, but tons and tons of coaches. I mean, I could do a show and I'd have 100 guests of just North Central alums who are in the college ranks, or not college, I'm sorry, high school and college of track and field ranks. What was it about North Central that, as you look back now, that kind of helped, at least stoke the passion that, yeah, you know what, I am going to be a coach now, not, 40 years from now.
Yeah. I think a lot of our guys end up going into coaching, and I think it says a lot about Al and Grammy, their experience at North Central and how they were treated, and just the impact that Al and Grammy had on our lives, through college, meant a lot to us, and it triggered something that we wanted to give that back to other people. I think it's just when you give and when you are helping others, I think it has a lot more meaning in your life and a lot more fulfillment. And Al and Grammy were the best example of that. Those guys were like fathers to a lot of us. We were just incredibly fortunate to end up at this small little school in Naperville, Illinois, then have, who I think is the greatest of all time. Al Carius,
No
I
doubt.
only have good things to say.
Yeah, well, and you're right. As great a coach as we all know Al Carius, interestingly, less people know about Grammy, but as fantastic of a coach. Both of those gentlemen, I've had the pleasure of working with them and getting to know them through coaching, and then even through my time here at Gill. Better people, great coaches, better people, and that's when I ask guys like, Kareem Jackson up at Wisconsin, Wendell McCraven. I can't even name more. There's 100 more coaches I'm missing out there. It's always like, oh yeah, they just gave of themselves to us, and that helped us style our coaching and stoked our passion for it. Now, interestingly, we're talking about a small, beautiful, by the way, if you've never seen North Central's campus, it's gorgeous. It really is, in beautiful Naperville. You said his advice to you when you said, okay, all right, I want to coach. I don't want to do this business thing right now. I want to coach. He said, go as big as you can. I thought that would have been the opposite of what I would have thought, small school coach would have said.
Yeah, well, because I knew I was probably going to have to volunteer to get into the profession. And it's just easier to start kind of as a volunteer at that level. Because then after that, you can kind of maybe have a little bit more options, right? If I had volunteered at the D3 level, I would pretty much limit myself to D3. This way I had, all the division. And just to see it, to be frank, I already saw the best Division 3 program in the country. It didn't really make sense to go volunteer at another D3 school because, North
Yeah.
Central was doing it as well as you could. And so I think that's kind of it was his, thought process, like, well, you go do it at another level and see kind of what the differences are. And, you know, then you can kind of decide what level you want to be at and, what excites you. And maybe there's some things that they're doing that we need to pick up because, Al is always trying to grow and learn and he's
Mhm.
picking people's brains all the time. And so, he was even, kind of curious, I think, there too. So, yeah, it just made sense. Joe, Coach Piani was a great mentor also and taught me a lot and had run a really successful program. And so, yeah, I've just been incredibly fortunate to have, some pretty influential and very successful people in my life at a really, you know, really early age to help, shape my philosophies on coaching and treating people right and those kind of things.
Yeah, I was going to mention that it's, some of us are only lucky enough maybe to have a legend in their life once. You go from, maybe a couple of legends, Grammy and Curious, to Joe Piani, who, oh my goodness, another just all-star. When I coached at Ball State, he was one of the first people to kind of welcome me in the Midwest. I mean, just an amazing human being. So I love that you set your sights high, like, okay, let's go find, what's one of the biggest programs I could find, and you hit maybe the number one. You go to Notre friggin' Dame here now. What was it like? Was there any, I'm going to call it imposter syndrome. Do you know what imposter syndrome is? Have you heard
Yeah,
that term? Yeah.
yeah,
So you were at I'm going to give all the prejudices of D3. You're D3, non-scholarship, little Naperville, and now you go to the big time, Notre Dame, ACC, national championships is the goal every year for cross and distance and track there at Notre Dame. How did you acclimate yourself? I know you said you're a volunteer, so I understand there's some different places there. You're not maybe writing workouts and stuff like that, but you're still having to uphold that ND on your chest and what Piani and the other coaches are doing. How did you go from quote unquote little D3 to the big stage right off the bat? How did you handle that?
yeah. I mean, I just think that people that work hard are invaluable. Um, like the reality is, if Joe wanted advice on a workout, he wasn't going to be asking his volunteer, right? And I knew that. Um, like he'll call someone that was relevant. And so I knew, I just knew my role, and my role was to do whatever needed to be done, and I would have cleaned toilets if I had to. And I think that's the basis of anybody that's trying to get into the profession and volunteer is like, listen, you're volunteering to learn how to do the job. And you're trying to, if they're going to spend the time teaching you that job, you should make it worth their time by doing whatever and everything that you have to make their job easier. And that's just kind of how I thought of it, is whatever it takes was what I was willing to do. And yeah, I mean, I think you got to recognize that, most people that are volunteering are, pretty, fresh out of college. And so you're giving up your 20s, like, I mean, I lived in South Bend, Indiana from 23 to 34. I don't know if you've been to South Bend, Indiana, but like, not a place for young professionals. And so,
I live in
I,
Champaign, man, so I know South Bend.
yeah, yeah. So, I just immersed myself in the job and
Yeah.
doing everything I could to, in my way, make the program better. Whatever my role was in that, and it evolved, over the 11 years that I was there.
So I hear you. Dig one layer deeper. There's someone out there right now who is either starting their volunteer position at XYZ University or wants to get into coaching. You now looking back on that experience, what's the one piece of advice you would give them once they're there? Is it to soak up everything training wise the coach says? Is it to learn the other side that as athletes we don't think about? We only think about on the track. We don't see all the other stuff that we have to do as coaches. What's one piece of advice, like, hey man, you want to make this worth your while, make sure you do this?
Yeah, there's obviously X and O's matter. think learning how to run a successful culture is important. But then I also think, you're going to see things that maybe you don't agree with, right? And that's good. That's not a bad thing, right? Like, I think it makes you think about what you want to do when you're in that role, for good and bad. And, every bad experience, I think, still has some benefit toward what you're going to do in the future. And so, I think taking in, all of the aspects, whether you like them or not, is a really important part of it. And then, realizing there's really no job that's above you, or below you. Like you just do whatever it takes in whatever role you're in. I mean, even in the role I'm in now, like I'll do whatever I have to do. Like last week I was cleaning our golf cart. I washed our golf cart by hand. Why? Because it makes an impact on the program. Because recruits are going to see that golf cart because it represents the University of Tennessee. And it needed to be clean that day. I'm going to do that. Like whatever it takes to be good is what we will do. And I just think that when people have that approach to how they go about their job, you're going to probably be a little bit more successful.
Yeah, I love that example of the golf cart. One of the things that blew me away on one of my visits to Oregon, Robert Johnson, now former head coach, Oregon has quote unquote everything, right? I mean, they can 100 volunteers, 100 director of ops, whatever. And I went out for jumps practice, and he was out there turning his own pits. And I told him, I was like, Robert, I go, no one in America will believe me that you are actually the one who, everybody thinks you got guys with golden shovels out here. So I was going to make a joke when you said you're cleaning the golf cart. I was like, hey, let's get your new director of ops on the line here. What's going on here? Why are they doing that? Well, it's a great example of servitude of, your quote there of, no jobs below you. All right. It reminds me of the famous one, my parents taught me to treat the janitor the same as I would treat the CEO. Well, that's only if the CEO is willing to do the things that the janitor would do, in my opinion. So I love that example. Where does that come from? Were your parents, I think of service type jobs, were your parents teachers, business owners? That had to be learned by you somewhere.
Yeah. My parents were divorced very early in life. They were collar jobs. I lived with my grandparents for most of growing up. So I just learned that you've got to do what you've got to do to survive pretty early on. And there was nothing that was off limits to survive sometimes. So, and I've just taken that philosophy because at the end of the day, the reality in my life, there's no safety net for me. If I fail at my job, I don't have a mansion to go back to, or a trust fund, or a dollar, for that matter. Like I've got to make sure that I'm successful, and so I just knew there was no safety net.
Is that what drives you? We all have different motivations. Is that almost sounds like, and this is going to sound the wrong way, Sean, so stay with me here. It almost sounds like not a fear of failure. I was going to say a fear of failure, but you have this drive, like, hey man, you kept saying that there's no safety net.
Some people say, fear is a bad thing. Like fear is a good motivator too. Mm-hmm. Like, listen, I really enjoy what I do. I love what I do, but don't think for a second that every day I don't have a little bit of fear, because that is the truth. Fear of, not giving my all to the university, to my staff, to the kids that come to run for me, right? Like, there's a lot of trust and expectation that I have to fulfill too.
So you feel in your role and the roles that you've had, like, you have to be successful, but it didn't sound like you had to be successful for you and your ego. You mentioned your staff, the team, the school. Like it sounds like it's like your motivation is actually a little bit bigger than just inside your skin.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can find a way to survive in whatever job, right? Like, but I'd rather do it for a reason, for a purpose, for something bigger than myself, and that's kind of the approach I've always taken. It's obviously why it was very difficult to leave Notre Dame when I left Notre Dame, because I spent the last 11 years giving 100-hour weeks, every ounce of my energy toward making a program better. And now I've got to, now I'm going to give that to Tennessee.
So let's talk about Notre Dame, because you spent 11 years there. Not only did you spend 11 years, it's almost like it's almost like growing up, right? You go in as a baby volunteer, you leave as, I believe, were you the head women's cross country coach?
Had men's cross country
men's.
and track and field coach. Yeah.
Gotcha. So, I mean, you lived the dream in the sense of like what a lot of people would hope to be. They'd love to go in as an assistant and be a head one day. You went in as a volunteer and left as a head coach. Talk about your growth in Notre Dame, because you did have some amazing mentors, Matt and Joe and other people, other assistants, Wayne Pates and stuff that came in, some amazing men and women that have coached there. How did you see yourself transform as a coach and really as a person? Because coach is your title, Sean is the person. How did you your transition, how did you transform during that 11 years?
Yeah, I mean, my roles changed a lot over time. I started basically just recruiting, and then I got men's middle distance, then I got women's middle distance, and then 6 years ago I got all of the men's distance side, and there was even a little bit more responsibility and pressure on that. And when I got the men, we were 14th in the region and 10th in the conference, so we weren't very good. For a place that expected a little bit better than that, we kind of turned that corner and won 3 out of 4 conference titles, and we're second at nationals in cross country. But I think the biggest thing that I grew in is probably just maybe how I went about things. I'm a very mission-oriented person, and so I want to go from point A to point B in the fastest route. And the reality is sometimes you got to take some detours and stop at a couple points and say hi and smile and throw sprinkles. And, so I think I learned, well, I'm still learning, to do those better. For a very mission driven person, it's not, maybe it just doesn't come naturally. And so I have to work on that, and I still do, and still I'm trying to. But yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing that I think I took, the X's and O's, an overall philosophy of how to train. That's all from North Central, but how to grow up and be a professional is a lot of that was learned there, and caring about kids, and realizing that everybody matters in different ways. Realizing, when I first got to Notre Dame, I thought, these kids, where they're coming from and where I came from, are very different, and I don't know how much impact or help I can have on them. And really quickly I learned that, like, they're different problems, but they're still problems, and they still have the exact same emotional reaction. Kids still have the exact same emotional reaction to the hardest thing they've done in their life. And a lot of times the hardest things you've done in your life start in college. And so, whether it's they lost, parent, or, something really significant, which we had a couple things. Obviously that's very difficult for those kids, but it doesn't downplay other issues that kids had, whether that be mental health or things like that. And our job is to, be there for those kids and help walk them through that process, and, just let them know they got someone in their corner that's got their back.
And maybe has had some experience in some of those things as well.
Yeah. when you're 18 to 22 years old and your echo chamber is 18 to 22 year olds, and that's where you're getting all your advice, it can be dangerous. So having someone maybe that's seen it before, whether it's another athlete or life experience or whatever, the coach gives maybe a little bit more, or tries to take a step back and give a little bit more rational thought through, perspective, for kids. I mean, I think, everybody thinks of coaches as an X and O's, but, coaching is like, it's life, right? It's the values and characteristics that you develop and reinforce in the 4 or 5 years you're in school are probably those same exact values and characteristics you're going to continue to have over the next 40 years of your life. And our job is to help reinforce and support the right things.
Yeah, you can help them with the X's and O's, obviously the training component. You can help them get in their dorm rooms and teach your, classes. But the one thing you can't force into them is experience. That's something they have to live and experience on your own. But luckily they have coaches such as yourself to help guide, be that mentor, the outside of the, what's the repeats today and what's the long run today, the outside stuff, which definitely has to be the majority of what coaching really is.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you're in it for those reasons, you're probably going to have a pretty good baseline of success, right? X's and O's matter too, but I think that gives you a really good starting point, because if you have that, it's really easy to learn the X's and O's. If you don't have that part and you have great X's and O's, I mean, no one's going to buy into what you have to say if they think that you care about them more as an athlete than as a person.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a real good. That may be the quote of the whole interview right there, man. If you don't have that, the X and O's, you can be perfect on that. It ain't gonna happen. Yeah, that's really hit rewind on that if you're listening, because that was really enlightening right there. So I told you I'm a myth buster. I like to bust myths, right? So I want you to talk about two things at Notre Dame before we switch over to the orange here. One is I think you said you made $12,000 your first year, your first non-volunteer position. It's Notre Dame, man. Was it like $100,000 to go to school there? We would have thought you were making all the big bucks from we thought the volunteer was making 50 grand, to be honest with you, somehow at Notre Dame. Talk to us about, somebody who's getting into coaching. And I think it's okay to get into coaching for money. And I'll put that with an asterisk before anybody says, what are you talking about? Meaning, I think you should make money as a coach because you have a family, a life, etc.
Yeah, you should be able to take care of yourself.
100%. 100%. Absolutely. Like I actually don't like the grind, the example you gave of volunteering and then 12 grand and then hopefully more and more. Cause I'm like, no, man, you have value as a person. I want you to get paid right off the bat. And I know you would have gotten paid right off the bat if that was available. I get that. But talk about how did you got Notre Dame on your resume. You got North Central on your resume. You're making 12 grand, maybe 20 grand's the next. I don't know. You had to have other opportunities. Yeah. You had to, I won't get your IRA. I won't get your tax returns, man. It's all good. But you had to have other opportunities that maybe be paid a little bit more. How did you set your expectations and have the patience to know that it was going to pay off with a better, more deserving salary eventually? How did you have that patience to not jump at the first, I'll throw my alma mater, going to Troy University and making, I don't know, we probably pay 35, 40 grand. I have no idea what we pay, but less than probably what you're making now, but more than 12 grand. How did you have that patience to stay like, hey, this is my rock. This is going to be the right thing?
Yeah. I mean, I can't say thought at times, right?
Sure.
But I think you should take the job over the money for as long as you can, and you're probably going to end up in a pretty good spot. The longer you can probably do that, probably the better position you're going to be. I mean, yeah, obviously, and when I say take the job over the money, I think that refers to a lot of things, like a job that you think you can learn at and grow at and really set yourself up to be successful when you do take over your own program. Like that matters. I'm not going to beat around the bush, but the name of the school is relevant. It just is. And that certainly helped too. But yeah, I just valued my long-term future over pay for a long time, for a really long time. I mean, I think most people would be surprised what I made at Notre Dame throughout my career. Yeah, and I think you've got to prioritize, just like everything else in life, like happiness and what you feel like you can learn. There's buckets, there's categories in a job, right? Hours work, fulfillment, happiness, salary, all these things. And let's say there's 10 categories, you don't get 100 points, you get, 50, 60, 70 points, and you got to kind of prioritize which ones matter to you. And what mattered to me was putting myself in a position to be the best coach I could by being around people that, supported me and helped me along and helped me learn. And then, by being at a place that could give me a chance to win a national title.
Yeah.
And we scored 85 points at the national meet and had 5 All-Americans and didn't win. We were second. So sometimes it didn't work out.
That's just so sick, man. It really is.
It was 6 All-Americans, but 5 in the top 25.
You lived it, so it's more sick for you, my friend. Okay, myth bust number 2, and then we're going to turn to the big orange. You're at Notre Dame. It's easy to recruit there, right? I mean, come on, you got to just go to the top 10 kids in each category, the 15, the 5K, and 10K, and you just got to pluck them and bring them to South Bend, Indiana.
By then, it did become easy. I'll say that.
Okay.
We started as 10th in the ACC and 14th in the region. 920 kids wouldn't take my call. I'm not kidding. There was 920 kids that just weren't interested. And also the average ACT at Notre Dame is a 34. 50% of people denied admissions are valedictorians in their graduating class. So
34.
Recruiting pool gets very small very quickly.
What's the highest? 36?
36, yeah.
Yeah. So
that's the average ACT of the university.
Average, right? Yeah.
Athletics, obviously, get a little leeway there, but it's not like we were the football team, making miracles happen either. So it was it had a lot of parameters. We had a very small recruiting net, and you kind of had to really hit it. It's not like there was a huge pool of kids, and that when we took second at nationals in cross country, we had 7 guys within 500 miles of campus. And I think what that really shows is we had to develop kids. At the national meet outdoors last year, we had 2 918 guys at the outdoor national meet.
Wow.
918 out of high school ain't good.
Right.
Okay. And I don't know the exact stat, but I'm pretty sure those are probably 2 of the slowest high school PRs at that outdoor national meet.
Right.
So it just shows that, yes, we did get some really, really talented and Foot Locker national champions. But at a place like Notre Dame, it's difficult to have that kind of depth because of the academic standards. And so you had to develop kids. Now, the last year I was there, we signed 6 or 7 guys under 9 minutes for 2 miles, which has to be the number 1 recruiting class in the country.
Right.
That was a little bit easier because we established ourselves into being one of the better distance programs in the country. So that's your present Notre Dame as I leave, probably the number 1 recruiting class in the country. But it was a long haul to get us to that point where we had access to those kids and where we could recruit those kids, where those kids would even have a conversation with us, Yeah, I mean, some of those kids were looking at Notre Dame and Oklahoma State as their final 2, right? That doesn't make sense.
Right.
It means they care about running.
Right.
Obviously, they chose Notre Dame for academics still too, but when those are your 2 places, Dave Smith has done a fantastic job at Oklahoma State, making it a premier running program, and it just shows that the kids that were looking were some of the best distance runners in the country and prioritized running.
Yeah, it's quite common. We forget that we're looking from the outside, and so we see a Notre Dame or any other school, you name it, and think, oh, they've got it so easy. I remember when I was going from high school and I wanted to go to college coaching, and I was like, man, college is so much better. I get to pick who I want to work with. Where in high school, it's just whoever shows up. That myth got busted like the first day my first college job, and then when I went to the SEC, I was like, oh man, it's going to be so much easier. Now I'm at Mississippi State, SEC. Everybody's going to know who I am and who we
Yeah,
are.
everybody wants to be in Starkville, Mississippi, right?
First of all, you got Stark Vegas. That's right. Exactly right. My first recruit I called, LZ Coleman, set the indoor 400-meter high school national record. We spoiler alert, we signed him, by the way, baby. But my first phone call, I call him up and I was like, so LZ, I was like, so like, who else are you looking at? And he's like, oh yeah, it was USC, Baylor, Florida. I think it was TCU at the time. And I was like, crap, this didn't get easier. I got to recruit against Mouse. I got to recruit against LA. I was like, man, this didn't get easier. It might have gotten harder. So the kids that you're recruiting, those sub-9 kids, it ain't like they only had one choice. Like you're saying, Oklahoma State, and you probably up against some of the other, the top 5.
A month. They're choosing they've got a lot of different color Ferraris that they get to choose. I'm not selling a Ferrari against a Kia. I'm selling a Ferrari against other Ferraris. And so, yeah, they, Stanford, Notre Dame, yeah, they were looking at all those places.
I think at best at Stark Vegas, when I was there, it was a Nissan Altima. At best is what I was trying to sell. All right, well, let's talk about selling something really, really good. I've been a fan of University of Tennessee for quite a while. How did this opportunity come up? And there's some uniquenesses here to explore because, and you're going to explain it to us, but Dwayne Ross is the head track coach. And Dwayne Ross, he's a podcast alum. You got to go back and listen to his podcast. Just one of the most amazing men in this world. I consider him a dear, dear friend. And so that was announced like one day. And then like an hour later, the distance coach was announced, but it wasn't announced as here's the assistant track / head cross country coach. It was here is the director of cross country, the head coach of distance, Sean Carlson. So Sean, talk to us. First of all, how did this opportunity come up? Why was it attracted to you? And what are you guys doing there in Knoxville?
Yeah, it's certainly a unique setup that doesn't really exist in the NCAA currently. It started with Danny White, our athletic director, who kind of had a unique vision for track and cross country. I think you see a lot of distance-oriented programs and a lot of track-focused programs, and you don't see a lot that kind of do both really well. And Tennessee has a rich tradition of distance running. We won 1972 cross-country nationals here. We've had, some just really good distance runners over time, and obviously we've had a really good track team, and we want to combine those two without sacrificing one or the other. I think we have a really unique model that I think works really well for both me and Dwayne, and in that me and Dwayne care about coaching, right? And he doesn't want to deal with distance runners. I don't want to deal with sprinters because I don't know what I'm doing there. And let's take our time and energy and focus it into coaching as much as we can, which is why we've hired such big support staffs to help us do what we're supposed to do, and that's coach. We have already kind of coordinated our budgets, our scholarships for cross country and for track, and we can kind of do our thing, stay in our lane, and then at conference, regionals, nationals, show up together and be an absolute power. And that's, I'm not going to pretend to know what sprint meets to go to, and Dwayne's not going to pretend to know what distance meet to go to. And I think we both just are confident and secure enough in ourselves and how we do things that we trust the other one to do it, do their expertise really, really well. And, obviously I met with the athletic director, Danny White, initially in this whole process and kind of pictured my vision also of this. And then me and Dwayne met, and it just seemed seamless. It seemed really easy. I think a lot of people have egos in this profession and feel like they've got to be in charge of every little thing. And both of us just want to be good, and we just want to win. And we both know kind of what we need to do in our worlds, and we can kind of combine that into one when we get on the track. And so it's I think it's a really easy model when you have the parameters around it from a scholarship standpoint, from a budgetary standpoint, from a staff standpoint, all that. I think we already had all that laid out initially. So that way it was easy. There was no, hidden doors. It was just, hey, this is what we're going to do. Are you on board? Yeah, let's do this kind of thing. So, Dwayne's got 4 track coaches, Dwayne, assistant sprint coach, throws coach, jumps coach, and then a recruiting coordinator, a director of ops, all on the track side of stuff. And then on the distance side here, we've got myself and Nick as my assistant for cross country and distance. And then we've got recruiting coordinator, Paige Duca, a director of ops, Mackenzie Landa for cross country. And so, we can just kind of do what we've both got to do as programs, and then we kind of collectively come together when it matters when we're trying to win championships.
I give Tennessee a lot of props. We just had this conversation with a past guest here recently about track coaches and the proverbial many hats that you have to wear, and how sometimes it's not fair. And I know life's not fair, but not that I expect a track coach to only be on the track to coach. There are some other things and responsibilities that you have.
I mean, when I was at Notre Dame, I did recruiting. I did
right
everything.
Yeah.
Until my last year at Notre Dame, I didn't have any assistant.
Right.
It was me recruiting, doing it all, and coaching 30 guys. Right. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And during COVID, I had a cross country team getting ready, a team getting ready for indoor conference, a team getting ready because they didn't have eligible indoors or cross country for outdoors. It's overwhelming. And I think the cool thing that Tennessee has done is they said, listen, we want to make sure that we're utilizing you for what you're good at. Right.
Wow.
And so by having a recruiting coordinator, a director of ops, all these things, I think what ends up happening is a lot of really good coaches eventually get elevated, right? The assistant coach that just coaches gets elevated to be a director or be a head coach or be a whatever. And they move away from coaching. They move away from what they were good at, and they start doing a bunch of other things: paperwork, emails, meetings, just endless. It literally could be
fundraising, alumni,
all that
equipment order. Exactly.
And the reality is, like, listen, I wasn't hired here to do that. I was hired here to make this program the best distance program that I can possibly make it. And that's what I'm going to focus on here. And I'm going to stay out of and allow our staff to do what they need to do in their roles. I think people just stay in their lane and do their job. Usually things work a little bit easier.
Yeah, I love this idea because, again, Sean, you got into coaching to coach, not to do paperwork, not to do call logs and all this stuff. So I really I love that.
I'm going to be good at that either.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I love that director of ops is becoming more common. I know not every school has it yet. And several programs now are starting to get 2 DOs and, recruiting coordinators, et cetera. So I just love that because it's supporting our coaches to be coaches. And then also the other things, it doesn't absolve you from all the other things you got to do. So I just love that the support of giving coaches here for that.
I want those people to be in a position to tell me what to do, not me to tell them what to do. Right. Like, I'm going to coach and do the X's and O's and have time to have relationships with our kids and, be present and go to lunch with them and, be in their lives. And then, on the side of things that we need to do to be an organized program and be structured and do things right, we've got people in place that know how to do it and will tell me when I've got to show up to the meeting.
So I love the vision that Danny White gives for this. As far as I know, it's the most unique out of any other university that I'm aware of. Maybe there's somebody out there I just haven't heard of. I usually know.
I think it'll be more common eventually.
Right. So going into something new like this, for you, this would be going into something new, even if it was the traditional model, right? You're going to a new place. You're on your own on this one. Your complete fingerprint will be on this one. Others it would scare the bejesus out of them, right? It's like, oh, wait a minute, this ain't how we do it, Danny White. This ain't how we do it, Tennessee. Yeah. What attracted you to it? What I think of Notre Dame and conservative and traditional. Here we're doing something. We're throwing the recipe out and creating a whole new ball game here, buddy. What excited you? Obviously excited you. You took the job. What excited you about this?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go through the motions in life, and I'd rather be on the cutting edge of things and do something that I was, at the end of the day, I believed in it. I believed in what this can be and the success that this can have. And I think when you believe in something, you got to bet on yourself, and that's what I did. I know a lot of people think I'm crazy. We took second at cross country nationals. We had the most distance qualifiers for other outdoor national meet. Like, we were doing pretty well at Notre Dame. And obviously it seemed like a pretty big move. But I just betting on myself and what I think we can do here, and um, betting on Danny White. I believe in his vision here and what we can be. I think we can do it in a fun way. Like, there's high expectations, but I'm in the SEC. We can have some fun too. So yeah.
Yeah. I interview coaches from around this country, buddy, and not many say, and have fun with it. So I love that attitude. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's a job, and that's supposed to support all these other things, your family, your lives, your passions. To be able to have fun at work, that's a unique perspective. And we're in sports, so it shouldn't be unique for us. But I love that attitude of, let's have some fun while we're doing this and being successful.
Yeah. It's I mean, last year, I think, or last week, Nick added it up. We worked 95 hours. So if I'm not having fun doing this, like, this is my life, right? Like,
Right.
why am I doing it then?
Right.
So yeah, we try and enjoy this and enjoy the relationships that we're able to make with our kids and stuff along the way. And to be honest, winning is fun.
Correct. And hard, by the way.
Very hard, but it's fulfilling, and so we're excited about that part too.
Well, let's talk about something that we don't talk about a lot here. I don't know that I've ever used this word on the podcast, Sean, because I don't like dealing in it. I like just asking straight to the source, and I've got the source. So we're gonna bust this right here. I don't like dealing in rumors, right? Everybody likes to talk, and of course the internet chatter and all that kind of stuff. It's out there. The rumor is this ain't just a radical new way of looking at track and cross country. It's a radical way of looking at how you support track and cross country. They tell me that the internet's, they, capital T, they, I've yet to figure out who they are, but they keep telling me stuff, right? That the cross country / distance side is going to be completely funded by NLI. Now that's a cool, sexy thing to say because of what NLI and what you see with football and basketball. Are you guys going completely, so no scholarships for your distance kids, only funded by, I don't even know what NLI is. I thank God I got out of coaching. Tell us what's the truth. Let's get the real skinny here. Let's put this to bed.
Yeah, we've raised $100 million already. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I was like, wait.
No. That's just a rumor. We have scholarships allotted for distance runners here. Typical of what you see at any program. So we believe that the money and we're investing in distance running can, allow us to be successful.
Yeah, perfect. Good. So it's not a completely NLI. That'd be there is, if it was going to be, I hate to say this, don't take this the wrong way, Sean. If this was going to be done for cross country at Tennessee, it would already been done for basketball at Duke or basketball at name any other big, rich Notre Dame, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
It wouldn't start with cross country folks. So I love that there's some traditionalism here. That, by the way, we still have rules. Notice how many coaches you said. It's the 6 coaches that you're allowed, and there's nothing crazy and funny and non-rule book breaking is going on here.
NCAA will probably eventually change in some of those rules and scholarships and things like that. I'm sure that's coming, but we're doing what everybody else is doing, trying to win with 12.6 and 18 scholarships, and
Amazing.
It is what it is.
Okay, so other inquiring minds. This isn't rumors. This is just me now prodding and poking, and because I know a lot of the people on your staff, so it's just curious. You have very distinct staffs. You have a distance staff that you control, and you have a track staff that Dwayne oversees. You mentioned you're kind of these are my words. I don't want to put words in your mouth. You're going to be doing your own things. You mentioned, he doesn't know what Stanford 10K meet you got to go to and all that stuff, and he knows what sprints and jumps and throws he needs to go to, but you're going to come together fully for like 2 times a year, not 2 times, sorry, 2 times indoors and I guess 3 for outdoors, right? Conference and nationals, hyper focused one team volunteers going at it, and then outdoors conference, regionals, and nationals.
Yeah.
How do you, who makes the call? You've got a stud that can do the 5 and I'm speaking out of my butt here. I don't know who does doubles and what, but you got a stud that can do a 15 and 5 double, or indoors. That's probably where it's more going to be applicable, right? DMR, 800, 1500, 3000. I guess it's the mile, not the 15. I just have every distance coach yell at me on Twitter right now, by the way. Who makes the call on, personnel utilage to help the team do best for conference and nationals?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing I'd say is like, one, all at times we'll be at different meets, and I think we're still one unified program, right?
Okay.
Like me and Wayne still want to be together in this, and both our staffs want to be together in this. And so, I think we're still one unified group with one vision. So I don't think that goes away. And same with the kids on the team, our distance kids are going to know our sprinters and jumpers and throwers and vice versa. And so we still want to have all that be a part of it. And we want to be a team. And we want to support each other and do that. But I think part of being a good team is trusting your teammate, right? The distance runner trusts that the thrower is going to do what he needs to do. And, myself and Dwayne trust that we're going to do what we need to do and know the right decisions to make. And so Dwayne's not going to pretend to know whether that 10K kid, that might be having a shot at winning a national title at the national meet needs to run the 10K at conference or not. He's just going to say, score as many points as you can at a conference meet and do it in a way where we can do our best that we possibly can at nationals and a conference. And the same thing, it's people complicate this to be more than it is. Like, he knows that I have the best interest in our program, and I know that he has the best interest in our program. And, we trust each other to do what's right in that process. And so, yeah, he's not going to ever tell me whether we need to run a kid in the 10K, and I'm not going to tell him anything about sprints.
I want you to lay out his 4x1 for him, please. Just tell him, say, hey, you know what, Dwayne, I've been looking at this.
Yeah. I don't even know where to start.
Exactly. Just start at the start, baby. Just start at the start.
I just think that's what's happened in our sport is we take good coaches and we overwhelm them with a bunch of other stuff, and they don't become good coaches anymore. They become very average coaches. Let people do what they're supposed to do really, really well, and, create the staff and support around each other, and you're going to probably be pretty good.
That reminds me of the, having the right people on the bus. That's only half the equation. Having those people in the right seats on the bus. That's what it reminds me when you tell me that. I like that. All right, man. You have been, I don't know, what is this day? Is it like day 17 for you? It's not very many. Maybe day 30. Yeah, not many.
Something like that.
You might not even know how to get from wherever you're, probably in an apartment or something, or in a hotel room right now, to the office. It's probably, you're still doing that. You're recruiting. You got a great staff. Finally got that. Not even finally. That was quick. That was good. You got good people. You're super, super busy. Thank you so much. But wrap us up here. We're going into cross country season. In fact, when you're listening to this, I think they just had their first home meet, first cross country meet, which was a home meet. So you got a home meet that you're hosting. What's got you and the staff excited for this season? What are you really looking forward to? Not in cross country, but also indoor and outdoor. What's just got you jacked up? You can't wait. What's got you excited?
Yeah, I think we've got a really good group of kids here on campus right now in Tennessee jerseys that want to get better. And you can't ask much more than that. Is, kids that are bought in and want to get better. I've been incredibly impressed by, how excited our team is by having the new staff here and wanting to just, take the next steps in their progression as distance runners. I know we're a new system, but they all seem really excited about it. And then we're excited about the future. We've already had, I think, 30 to 40 kids on campus already. And wow. We've had 1 to 2 kids every single day that I've been here for visits, and we'll continue to roll with it. I think I've been impressed by how easy this place is to, kind of sell to kids. It sells itself really. And so, yeah, it's been it's been fun, and it's a cool city. We're close to nature. We've kind of got the best of everything. We got mild weather. I get to see the sun every single day here, which is, rare where I'm coming from. So there's just a lot of really cool things going on, and yeah, we're pumped, and we're in the SEC. It's
Good
what do
luck.
they say? It just means more.
Yeah. Hey, let me tell you, I have a buddy of another school that's coming into the SEC. And I was like, look, man, I was in the SEC before A&M and Missouri was there. And it sucks. It's just a tough, brutal, dead meat. And then they
I'm
added A&M
pumped.
and Missouri. And now they're going to add Oklahoma and Texas, buddy.
Yeah, I'm
It's a
pumped to shake it up.
bloodbath. And I have no doubt that you guys are, because I've known Dwayne for a long time now and believe in him. I've seen what you've done. I believe in you. I actually, beyond that, because 1 + 1 can equal 2, but I think the support of the university, of the athletic department, it starts from Danny, right? I think this makes it a 1 + 1 = 3 kind of thing. And that's I know there's plenty of people that are a little concerned right now, my friend, and that's a good seat for you to be in, to be causing that concern. So now it's time to go out and produce, and that's what you've done throughout your career.
Yeah, I mean, I think hire the best sprinting coach in the world, and I think I can do my job pretty well. It's
and
easy,
the
man.
and the
Just
rest of them aren't bad either, my friend. You
yeah,
know that. I
yeah,
know
yeah,
at this point we
I-
can't say some things, but
yeah. It's
yeah.
an
No,
incredible staff, and we're gonna let people do their jobs, and that's simple.
I love it. I love
we,
it.
we love to complicate, uncomplicated things. Same thing with distance running or X's and O's of track and field. Like, man, just do the simple stuff really, really well,
Mm,
and you're probably going to be very good. When you start trying to work on 1% stuff, you forget about the 99% that actually matters.
right.
And, yeah, we've got the right people in the right places that all want what's best for the program and want to support each other, and we're going to run with that.
Well, my friend, what I love about your story, as exciting as I use an analogy of the 400 meters a lot and where people are in their careers. You are barely at the starting line. And what I mean by that's a positive thing. It means you're so young, you've got a lot of experience, but you've got 10, 20, 30, 40, I don't know, with modern miracle medicine, you might have 50 years. Look, the way you have fun with this, you gonna be coaching for a long time. I could just tell, man. You a Piani, you going for a long time. Al Karras, you even got those guys as examples, man. You got a long, long runway. And
There
that's
won't be 100 hours a week when I'm 50 and 60. I can tell you that much. I still
you'll
got that right now, but
you'll deserve to
that'll
move
slow
it
down
down
a
to
little bit.
you'll deserve to move it down to 50 or 60 hours a week back then. It's okay. It's okay. But what's exciting about that is, the success that you've had today, which is amazing for this young a point in your career. You're going to have so much more going, and you're going to positively impact young people so much more. And I love that your pedigree, I love your background, and that it comes on a coaching scale from North Central. You mentioned about training earlier, and we don't talk X's and O's, but I love how you said it. You're like, oh, all the training, it's North Central way. I mean, that's just what we do. And you've added your own spin as you continue to educate yourself and get better. And the kids that come in that are a little different, so you got to do some things like that. I love that story, because that's what gives people hope. Someone doesn't have to look at your position and go, oh, well, I have to be a Division I runner at Notre Dame to kind of get a job like Sean has. Like, no, you can work your butt off, have great mentors, put the
Yeah.
work in. One
No,
of my
no
favorite
one
things.
hired me because of my athletic pedigree. I can
Right.
tell you that much.
Yeah. Thank God. Right. I'm in the same boat. It's like, man, thank God that wasn't part of the part of the interview process. But no, it's exciting, Sean, man. I really appreciate your time. I appreciate, like I said, I love being a myth buster. I love kind of clearing the air, and showing people that really at the end of the day, when you pull back that orange curtain, it's a bunch of people doing a bunch of hard work and having fun with it. And I think that's going to show once we start seeing results here in cross country season, indoor and outdoor. And I'm excited for it, man. I really am.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, Sean, man, appreciate your time again. I know you're super busy, man. Go back. I know you got probably 5 recruits sitting right outside the office. You got a bunch of DOs and recruiting coordinators. Go get them, man. And good luck at the indoor meet, or I'm sorry, at your home meet, because that's no small feat on its own, man. That's its own fun stuff there. So thanks again for being here today, man. Thank you for listening today. Join us next week. We're gonna have another awesome person. We're gonna find out if they have as much fun as this guy. He definitely looks good in orange, though. I'm gonna give you that. So we'll see who else pulls different colors as we go along the road here. So thanks a lot for being here, and we'll see you next week.